Hello, I'm Kevin Benedict, Senior Vice President of Solution Strategy here at Regalix. And I want to thank all of you for joining this digital expert interview series. I'm thrilled today to have as my guest Sangram Vajre. Sangram, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. I'm excited.
So Sangram is the co-founder and chief evangelist for a very cool company called Terminus. So again, thank you for joining, Sangram. Why don't you tell us and those that are unfamiliar with Terminus, kind of what's your focus area as a company and as a young company?
Yeah, so Terminus started in 2014, and really with the thought that, man, something is wrong with the way marketing and sales works. I think everybody knows the traditional funnel, which is broad at the top and narrow at the bottom. And Forrester came out with a research around 2014 timeframe that less than 1% of the leads turn into customers. So if you think about that, there's something fundamentally wrong with the way B2B marketing and sales is working if only 1% or less than 1% turn into customers. So we are on a mission to build the best-in-class account-based marketing platform and community to help B2B marketers be heroes in their organization. That's our mission statement. I'll make a challenge for everybody. They can go to terminus.com or be on a chat with Terminus. And if you ask what the mission statement, every single person in the company would say the exact same words I just said. And the point being that we want to help B2B marketers to take away this challenge between marketing and sales. So the way we do it is through account-based advertising at the moment. So our platform, you can log in, it connects with Salesforce and LinkedIn, and you can literally say, here's a list of companies I want to go after. Here are the type of people and role we want to go after, and we'll help you with advertising to them across mobile, LinkedIn, web, videos, all the digital channels. And it will also give you analytics at the account level. So you can answer the question, the age-old question, where's my money going? And help you with that question, which account are spending what money?
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Did your company come first, or did the trend in account-based marketing, the ABM acronym, which came first, the ABM or Terminus?
Oh, man, that's a great question. So to give credit where it's due, ABM, account-based marketing term, was first created, I think, in 1990s. By ITSMA, which is a European advisory firm. And it kind of, I think, was way before its time. Just like many good things, if it's not the right time, it doesn't. We all know sometimes. Just like Uber and Lyft, like even though everybody knows them, there were other companies who wanted to do what Uber and Lyft did. They just were too early time, or the execution was bad, like whatever might be the reason there. So ITSMA created this term, or first talked about this term, I think, in 1990s. But then really marketing automation and all those different technologies came about, and really ABM did not pick up until like 2013 or 2014. And even so much that when I started to write about ABM in 2014, 2015, there wasn't anything written a lot about this stuff. So when I started to write about it, Wiley's approached and they wanted me to write a book. So we wrote the first account-based marketing book that Wiley's published in 2015.
Oh, wow. That's a big project. I've had those discussions before, and the commitment is huge.
Extremely, man. I remember, and I'll be honest, I love telling people. A lot of people ask, like, hey, how do you start a company at the same time write a book in the same year? How can you do that? And I'll be very honest. I literally would wake up every day, 5:30, and then meet up with my team member from 6 a.m. to like 8 a.m. For a couple of hours, talk about it. She will record video, audio, whatever. Then I'll go run the company and then come back in the evening and do the edits while she's kind of writing everything she heard from me for the couple of hours. And we did that for like 4 months straight.
Oh, wow.
It was a lot of work, but it was well worth it.
Man, I think I'd run out of things to say after about, 6 days or something.
Well, that's where we actually interview people, right? That's why I love what you're doing. Here is interviewing people that are experts in the area that you or I may not know. So we interviewed about 50 or so people who knew more about the data, who knew more about the advertising world, who knew more about the analytics. So it really helped us.
Got it. So Sangram, what happened in 2013, 2014 that made account-based marketing start to take off with large enterprises?
I think the way I've explained this before is almost like this. It's not a revolution that just happened all of a sudden. I think it's truly an evolution. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the history, I think every 5 years there's some sort of magic that happens in the B2B marketing space, which means there's something new that fundamentally changes. So in 2000s, it was email. You remember Exact Target, and the email marketing was amazing at that time. People still do email, but at that time, people used to get 80, 90% open rate, right? Like it was just phenomenal. And then 5 years later, 2005 came about and marketing automation came to life. He's like, hey, if we can send emails, we should be able to capture leads. So Eloqua, Marketo, and Pardarts of the world came to life. You fast forwarded into 2010, predictive came about, and they said, hey, we got too many leads. We need to figure out we're working on the right leads. So we are going to predict which leads are the right leads and work with the sales team. And if you fast forward 5 more years, 2015, ABM came to life because they said, you know what, this whole thing still has the same challenge, less than 1% leads turning to customers. So we need to fundamentally change the way marketing and sales is working. So we're still in the pursuit of the same problem that started a decade and a half ago, but I think it has evolved from being a mass marketing to more personalization, trying to not just do things at scale, but really try to do at a point where people need to be connected and they want to understand that it's relevant. And I think the personalization is one of the biggest reasons I believe ABM is having such a big moment right now.
Oh, got it. So if I think back at 2012, the research reports and all the kind of publications I was writing about were social, mobile, analytics, cloud, the security, Internet of Things. So that was kind of the early wave of digital transformation, if you will. Was that kind of the predecessor to make possible ABM, or was it more of the big data analytics, predictive analytics, all that kind of stuff? How do you see technology evolving, and how did that support or hinder the progress of ABM?
I think that's a great question, Kevin. I think the social selling, especially that itself, is still a big thing, and still a lot of people have been talking about that. I remember very distinctly, I was at a MarTech conference in 2014, and it's Scott Brinker runs that conference, as most people know. And he had Jill Raleigh, who was a social selling queen, self-proclaimed, and she was with Eloqua and all these, great friend. And she was speaking, and she was doing a keynote. And it was a very good moment for me, and I think a lot of people sitting in that room, to recognize that marketing and sales, we're having this tug of war between each other, where marketing is saying, hey, we do things better, and this is how we do it. Sales saying we do things better, and this is how we do it. And I think it had to come to a point where I like to think we have to go #one team, right? Our customers don't care if you're a marketer or a salesperson. They just want a good experience. So I believe it's all of these are like small steps in the right direction, but none of them together was really big. Right? Like all of these, like marketing automation was a big move, but social selling and predictive never really caught on. And ABM is another big change, because it's not just a tool and a platform, as you said, it is a whole holistic strategy. And we can dive into what kind of strategies people are getting into in a little bit. But that is why it's so exciting, because it's fundamentally changing the way marketing and sales are working.
Got it. So let me go back and ask that question too. What kind of technologies themselves and the digital transformation effort kind of supported ABM? Was it certain kinds of cloud-based platforms that made it possible? Was it just the social platforms that made it possible? Where do you see, kind of the aggregation of technologies that would then propel ABM to the forefront?
I see it, and I think that is a tough question. The reason I say that is because I think the technologies are still emerging in this whole ecosystem of ABM. And I think it's going to be way bigger than marketing automation. And I say that because marketing automation only sat on the demand generation side of the house, which meant marketers send more emails, get more leads, and that was the focus of marketing automation. ABM fundamentally says that, hey, you know what? It's all about the right company and the right people. So it doesn't matter if it's demand gen or pipeline velocity or customer marketing or upsell, cross-sell or land and expand. It really doesn't matter as long as it's revenue. So it changes that, right? So that's why ABM is so much broader and bigger. So the tool set that you would need to do something like that can go from having data companies like Bombara and predictive companies like Everstring that we closely partner up with, and they provide the right kind of data to go after, which is extremely important. I will say the first step to do account-based marketing right is to have the right data. And these two companies, Everstring, for example, who are in the predictive space, and Bombora, who's in the data space, are really the best of the breed. Then you can expand that to like LinkedIn, because that's where everybody is like self-reportingly saying what their information is, right? So you know that they have the right roles. So LinkedIn becomes a really important expansion phase. And then from an engagement perspective, that's where Terminus comes in place. Vidyard, that does video marketing, which I think is extremely important to the personalization that we were just talking about. And then beyond that, the advocacy and measurement, those are the other two pieces of it, where customer success tools like Influitive and Gainsight really make a big impact. And then on the measurement side, companies like BrightFunnel are really doing a good job of aggregating all this information and helping people understand, is their ABM initiatives working?
Got it. So you know the company, the right companies to target, you know the right kind of positions and individuals to target. How do you practically associate the right content and recognize the right step in the path to purchase that somebody perhaps is at to get them the right content? How is that done?
Oh man, that is the holy grail of marketing, because as we all know, content is at the heart of it. Even if you have the right data, if it's not the right content, then the relevancy just misses out. And personalization is just a big deal out of it. So here's something that I've seen, and this has been mind-blowing for me, and hopefully it is for other people. In the days when I was at Pardot and ran marketing there, and we went to the acquisition, I was at Salesforce for a couple of years before starting Terminus, and even before that in InterNAP, I was in a demand generation marketing role, right? And I used to get goosebumps and excitement when I had like 400 people sign up for my webinar, or 500 or 600 people download an ebook. Those were the days where that was marketing is crushing it because they got so many. Now I get no enjoyment in those numbers, because what I've fundamentally realized is if they're not the right people from the accounts that my sales team can close, we are wasting their time by having them to qualify these people who downloaded an ebook or registered for a webinar. So now the way I look at it is all right, we did a webinar. It is on a very specific topic. And let's say it is about, let's say a ton of our opportunities are in the financial services sector, and it's for Fortune 500 companies. So now the webinar that we create is, how do we help financial services companies do X, Y, and Z in that are in Fortune 500? So that's the topic of the webinar, which means we're not going to get thousands of people to download on it. We're going to get like 50 or 40 companies to do it. And that's okay, because all of those 40 companies are exactly who we want to talk to. So if we can create that level of personalized experience, so now the content, it's not like we're stopping ebooks, we're stopping webinars, or we're stopping writing blogs. It's the way we create them, we have an end in mind. We know what we're trying to do and who we are trying to go after, and we are reverse engineering that and creating content. So the heart of ABM is to reverse engineer what your customer and future customer wants and create content for them, not to get too many people to look at it, but to get the right people to look at it.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Regalix, where I work and am a thought leader and a senior vice president of the solution strategy side, we've been around for over a decade. And a lot of the companies that we work with use kind of our digital agency side of the business to generate a great deal of content. But so much of the projects are at the kind of field marketing level or product management line. So if a company has 20 products, we're dealing with a different product manager on all 20 products. They all do things kind of differently. So although, we love the business, it's not a cohesive approach.
Yeah.
How would you work with a large Fortune 500 company like we do and talk to them and say, look, there needs to be a unified and uniform approach to ABM? How would you approach that?
Oh man, that is you really spoke to. So we do a Flip My Funnel podcast, which is a daily podcast. And today's, when we're doing this recording, we just started a professional services group inside the company for just exactly that reason, what you just mentioned. what we're finding out is companies want to do ABM. Because the cool thing, it's a shiny thing, your neighbor is doing it, so you better do it kind of thing, right? And people are forgetting to ask the basic questions of why we're doing this thing and how are we going to measure success as a result of it. So when I think about all the best use case for or the best companies that can make the most value out of ABM are the big, large enterprise companies. And the reason is they already know who they're selling to. They are doing ABM in some way, shape, or form. They're doing ABM in the form of golf tournaments or dinners, right? Like they are doing ABM. They're getting the right kind of people to come and talk and have a conversation, customers and sales, and get the right people at the right levels. That is ABM. It's not just advertising or direct mail. It's getting the right people together. That's what ABM is. So I think what we have seen customers struggle with is like, okay, let's just do this. And they go back into the same mode of like, how many people are we going to get at this webinar or ebook or an event? And we're like, no, that's not the point. The point is to get the right people. So it's a constant education process. So we started a professional services group in our company just to help to spend the time with the right people in the organization to say, hey, let me tell you, or let us share with you how other companies are doing it. And what we have seen it more and more, no matter what we say, it doesn't really matter because we're all like at your company or my company, we're all looked as vendors or product companies who's trying to sell stuff. And when we tell the story of another similar customer who's doing it this way, it all of a sudden makes a whole lot more point, right? You know, it makes all the sense in the world. Yeah. So
let me ask you this question. It sounds like from an ABM perspective that it might be better to have a breakfast event for 10 people than a giant booth trying to sort through 100,000 people walking past the booth.
1,000%. It's exactly the way of like, it's better to do for just exactly the same reason, it's better to do a focused reach out to 10 people online, if that's what you want to do, versus doing a press release on something. Because nobody like the press releases in the world, and I'm curious if you agree with me on this one. The press releases in the world are read by your CEO for their ego, or your board of directors because they want to make sure their investment is doing good, or maybe some customers just because they want to know if this company is viable or not. Beyond that, the press releases have fundamentally no value in my mind from a day-to-day your target audience perspective. Do you agree, or do you see it differently?
I would not totally agree with that.
Good.
Given that a lot of what you're doing operationally is recruiting new people to join your company. So the first thing they do is go read about you in the press releases.
That's
so
a great point.
From that perspective, you want them listed on your website so people can see kind of what those highlights are, right?
Right.
And the second thing is, as you pointed out, it might not be your target audience reading the press releases, but it might be other media sources that are better suited to you. And they read the press release and they call you because they want to interview you or have you write an article for them. So in that perspective, but direct lead gen, probably not.
Right. And I'm so glad you said those are two really good examples. I'm glad you said that. And I'll make sure I always think about it from a recruiting perspective. It's absolutely important. And from media relationship perspective, because you want to show continuous growth and innovation in what you want to do. But beyond that, I think people are thinking of that as a marketing tactic for lead generation. It just doesn't work anymore. So I think it's not a numbers game anymore. Because everybody's doing it. We all know the Scott Brinker's 5,000 plus companies. I have a friend of mine who just turned as a CMO, and he said as soon as he turned a CMO, he got hundreds. And he was a gig, he's like, you're showing me that hundreds of emails from all kinds of vendors. Hey, congratulations! Do you want to check out this tool or that tool? And he's like, man, if I just do that, there's no way I can do my job. So,
Sangram, I write a lot about digital transformation from the perspective of artificial intelligence and chatbots and automation and mobility and all this kind of stuff. But as soon as I start writing about marketing, the same thing happens. Suddenly, every vendor that's selling something from marketing is swamping my email. So I've noticed that since joining Regalix here, where we focus on digital transformation on the customer success side of the business. So let me ask you this. Is there an ABS? So ABM, so account-based marketing. what does ABS, if you would, account-based sales look like in relation to account-based marketing?
Oh man, this is funny because I have been told, because I'm in marketing and my background is pretty much in marketing. I've been told that I have emails and people saying that, hey, do you hate marketing? I'm like, no, I don't hate marketing. I'm a marketer. Why would you say that? He's like, well, because you're always talking about how important it is for marketers to align with sales. And I'm like, have you not been in B2B? The whole point, like as a case in point, if the sales numbers are going up, your revenue numbers are going up, what happens? Marketers get more money. It's as simple as that. If the revenue number drops, no matter how incredibly amazing marketing organization or marketer is, they're going to have less budget and they would have to cut down the number of resources in market. It's just the way, because, and as a founder of Terminus, I've realized there's this number called sales and marketing efficiency that the board and everybody looks at, and that number has to be under a certain number. So that is really important. So that's how it works. So I'm like, have you not been in B2B? Because marketing and sales are tied to the hip. So I have been on a quest to redefine some of that stuff. I think the reason ABM and it became such a thing is because I think marketers have been behind the eight ball. Point, sales have always hired account executives. Sales have never hired lead executives, right? So sales have always been doing account-based. They would never close Kevin or Sangram or anybody. They're closing, your company or Ford, or they know that it's an account. There are more people in the decision-making process. For last decade and a half, I don't know of a single company that hired lead executives. They all hire account executives. So the fact that marketers have been giving leads to sales for the last decade and a half, there's something wrong in the marketing process, not in the sales process. So the reason account-based marketing is catching on more of that is because I think marketers need to do. Now, from a sales perspective, and talking about ABS, I think they need help from marketing to figure out if they're going after the right accounts. They want to make sure that they're not wasting their time. They want to make sure that they are not going through the archaic band criteria of budget, need, authority, and timeline. They're actually going around fit, intent, and engagement. That's the new model that we talk about, is fit, intent, and engagement, which means, is this the right company? That's a marketer's job to figure out and help them and get that information from companies like Everstring and Bambaras of the world. Do they have intent, which means, is this company even looking for any of the stuff? Yes, they are right fit, which is fine, which is good. We know that if anything comes from this company, we need to go after them. But if any of these companies are looking for my stuff or a similar area, then I need to really go after these companies or these people, right? So there's fit, intent, and then engagement, where now that we have fit, now that we know they're in the market, we need to start engaging with them on their terms. So operationalizing ABM through the lens of fit, intent, and engagement, I think is a game changer for both marketing and sales. So ABM, ABS, we call it ABX now, just like everything. So I think it's about one team.
Got it. So let me ask you this as the next topic. What role does data, math, and algorithms play in ABM?
Ooh. That's a scientific question. I feel like, man, I don't know if I would go that deep, but I love the spirit behind it. I think going back to the fit, intent, and engagement model, I think here's the biggest challenge I see a lot of times companies face. Every single company has this spreadsheet that says, give me X number of leads, and there are X number of opportunities created, X number of demos set, and X number of customers, right? And the CEO, the board, everybody's looking at that spreadsheet. So they go to marketing team and say, give me those numbers because our sales can't close. And these are the ratios of conversion rates. So give me this to get that. It's very simple math. So that model has been working. That math has been there for the last decade and a half. That's been ruining marketing and ruining organizations because they're spending way more money on creating campaigns that don't drive real customers. So I think it's been ruining it. But then I think the new model, the whole fit, intent, engagement, if you really want to operationalize ABM and look at the math behind it, it is no longer about getting as many of these people. So for us, for example, at Terminus, we have 9,000 companies that we know are in our fit criteria. These are the companies, and we break it down. The next layer that I think from a math perspective that people can do better job at is picking up the tiers, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So for example, there are companies that are big enterprise companies, they're $1 million deals. We need to treat them differently than tier 2 companies who are half the size and half the revenue, and our revenue potential is half of that. And then from transactional deals who are just going to give it a shot, and they're just on the cusp of growth, but they're not there yet, right? So each one of these companies, each one of these tiers are going to have a different program, a different engagement model, which is really, really important to think about. So an engagement for a tier 1 might look like the breakfast and the dinners and the conversations and one-on-one meetings and a very 10 people webinar. It may seem like that because the value of those deals is so much higher. The engagement for tier 3, which are more transactional in nature, might seem like, okay, we're going to do a overall industry webinar, and we're not going to worry about very specific companies in this industry because we know that they're not going to buy for that or that size. So, and the engagement might be display advertising a lot more than what we would do at tier 1 level. It might mean that you might send them direct mail. Because they don't get direct mail, and they get a very personalized direct mail. For tier 1, maybe it's $100 direct mail, whereas for tier 2, it is like $20 direct mail. So I think the engagement levels strikingly vary. So your model changes quite a bit because you're not spending the same amount of time, energy, money, or resources on each one of those tiers. So I think that model, we at Terminus, and I know many of our customers and companies, they're all starting to evolve because we have to educate upstream to your CFO, your CEO, the board, how these models will work. And these models didn't exist. These models are newer in scale, and the predictability is really hard because it's just didn't have those conversion rates before.
Oh, yeah. In Sangram this week, I attended a conference and I sat in a session on marketing mix modeling. And the gentleman had the entire board filled with math formulas. And how, every form of advertising can impact somebody in 7 different ways, or 7 different effects an ad will have. And then you have to take those 7 and give numbers to them for print, for online, for email, for advertising, search engine or paid search, etc. And the end result of these complex formulas is a score that tells you exactly where to advertise.
Wow!
Here's how much money to spend on this, and this, given a finite budget. Yeah. So anyway, I can see the role of math is just becoming very, very important there. Now, I imagine everywhere we look, everything that we read, every conference we attend, people talk about the massive new influx of data, the result of all kinds of digital interactions, wearables, mobile phones, you name it. I imagine does that play a role in support of ABM?
In some ways, because that data is important. Without that data, because it's showing you intent. To me, it all goes back to the intent. Are the people that you want to go after, are they in that sweet spot or not? And that's why that data is super important. At the same time, going back to the formula part of it, as this gentleman was showing on the whiteboards, I feel it still goes back, and I'm curious about your thoughts on this. I think it still goes back to storytelling. And what story? Because we all are humans, and we have an irrational response to a lot of things that we're emotionally entertained and tied to it, even when things are apart. I remember, buying products, and I still do it because I like that company and I believe in that company, and I trust the salesperson and the process that they took me through, even though there might be a slightly better product at a cheaper price, that I might just not do it because I just don't trust them, right? And I think that thing is not going to change unless it's a very transactional product, right? Unless I'm not talking to anybody, unless it is a SMB oriented product where it is literally $10 a month or $5 a month or something. If it's not that, I want to believe that I'm part of a bigger thing. I want to believe that I'm part of a movement. I believe that I'm part of the innovation group. I think that's where a lot of people are still, that's the emotion part of it. That is the storytelling part of it. And I feel that in all the analytics in the world, in all the formulas in the world that we all can come up with, I think the message is at the heart of it. And the messaging has to be emotionally appealing. I know of a ton of companies who have great formulas and they can predict a lot of things, but I also feel like, oh, wait a minute, people are irrational in many ways. Like, I think I'm not rational all the time about making every single logical decision. I just would make sometimes irrational decisions because I love something. I love somebody's YouTube video. I love somebody's conversation they just had, and I want to be part of that. Like, that's just how I am. And I feel like the emotion aspect of it is something that's I think is missing or slipping from marketing. So there was this Mad Men era of marketers, which are all about advertising and big brand message. And then there's this new, this is analytics type of marketers who are like, well, I got the formula for everything. And in the middle lies your customer who thinks, show me that you care more.
Yes.
Show me that I matter and I'm not a number. And the mix, it's not one thing is better than the other or anything, but I think we have to keep the customer at the center of it. Otherwise, we're going to lose it because we are too programmatic around things, or we are just too emotional with no way of looking at things.
Oh, and so I would agree with that. I think there's probably a scale where you get into the consumer marketplace and it's more transactional, I think more numbers driven. But I think as you move up, it's more relationship based and trust based and story based.
Yeah.
Where, do you really want to partner with this company? Because if you buy their strategy, their philosophy, their platform, their product, you're going to be with them for decades.
Yeah.
Is it really the group you want to spend decades working with?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you're putting your reputation on the line, right? When I think I buy a product, I'm actually taking the time. I'm going to my CFO. I'm going to my team and saying, okay, we're going to do this thing. I'm putting my reputation, my job on the line in some way. And if that doesn't work, like, I don't want to buy something that won't work. But I also know I would go fight for something because I believe that they have my best interest.
Very good.
Those kind of relationship matters a lot.
So Sangram, in wrapping up our interview today, let me ask you this. Where do you see account-based marketing going over the next 3 years?
Oh, man, it's hard to say, quite honestly. I feel there is AI a big part of ABM, because ABM is all about personalization, as we shared and talked about. It's also getting to a point where people are starting to figure out the makeup of a true ABM campaign. But over a period of time, I think we do have to figure out how do we operationalize it so we have true revenue models. Right now, I think it's a little bit fuzzy for people to be very comfortable with in order to completely jump in with their 2 feet in. So I think for the next couple of years, I think there is more maturity that needs to happen in the way companies do and practice and measure and report on ABM. And I think the other part is ABM has to go beyond demand generation. They have to go in pipeline velocity and upsell, cross-sell, and all these other places where marketers are not nowhere to be found. They are put up in a silo. They put a bow on it and say, put a website together, create landing pages, and do webinars and emails. And I think marketers have to mature from that and go back and say, you know what, we can actually help drive revenue. And revenue is revenue. The color of money is still green. So we're going to bring upsell and land and expand and all those things. And I think marketing has to prove it. And ABM is a great way to do that because you know who you're going after. The AI part is very interesting. And I'm very curious, and I'm diving deeper and deeper in it in the last few months. And I see that happening in the last 3 years. In the next 3 years is, can we get to a point where we can tell a emotionally compelling story to the right account based on the behaviors that they have? And I don't know if you're there yet, but I imagine a day where marketers will be able to create emotionally appealing campaigns with a formula to back it up, to say this is what kind of things work, because we know so much about this person now. We know so much. And I think B2C has been in some ways doing that for decades. And I think it's time for B2B to step up and do that, because we're still B2C or B2B talking to humans.
Oh, that's very interesting. Matter of fact, that's a good segue into next week's interview, which is all going to be about the role of artificial intelligence in content and message generation.
Wow. I want to listen to that. That's awesome. Yeah,
we'll be talking to digital expert Christopher Willis next week. So Sangram, thank you so much for giving us this time this morning and sharing with everyone that's watching today.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me, man. I had fun.
Great. And for all of you, stay tuned next week as well. Thank you.